Hello, readers. Welcome back to Book Essence again. This is the audio of very famous book, The Sialkot Saga by Sir Ashwin Sanghi. So let's talk about the author first. Ashwin Sanghi ranks among India's highest-selling authors of English fiction. He has written several bestsellers: The Roswell Line, Chanakya's Chint, The Krishna Key, and a New York Times bestseller, Private India, together with James Patterson. Sanghi has also penned a non-fiction title, 13 Steps to Bloody Good Luck. He was included in Forbes India in its Celebrity 100 and is the winner of the Crossword Popular Choice Award. He was educated at Cathedral and John Connon School, Mumbai, and St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. He holds a master's degree in business management from the Yale University. Ashwin Sanghi lives in Mumbai with his wife Anushika and his son Raghuveer. So now, skipping the pages of content, acknowledgement, and disclaimer, let's move on to the very first page of the story. Let's start. The train arrived in Amritsar, leaking blood. It had started its journey crammed with Hindus and Sikhs, refugees in Sialkot on the Pakistani side of the border. It had rumbled into Amritsar Junction 3 hours later. Railway Constable Sukhbir Singh boarded the train with an impending sense of dread. There were no waving hands, nodding heads, wailing babies, or excited shouts. In fact, there was no sound at all. The eerie silence was the first sign of things to come. The second indication of what lay within was a swarm of buzzing flies. Inside compartment after compartment lay slaughtered bodies tangled together, grotesquely, almost like a tossed salad of human corpses. Bodies hanging out of windows, piled upon each other, stabbed, decapitated, mutilated, or with throats slashed. Men, women, and children, no one had been spared. When the train departed from the Sialkot junction, the people on the board had foolishly heaved a sigh of relief. They were blissfully unaware that a hastily formed battalion of avengers were awaiting the train's arrival at the bridge over the river Ravi. By the time the train rolled off the bridge, it carried a cargo of human death. The river beneath the bridge had turned pink with bleeding corpses that had rained into it from the train above. On both sides of hastily drawn up border, there had been ruthlessness and depravity by all communities, Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs. Shooting and stabbing of victims seemed almost humane when one considered the ghastly catalogue of other horrors that had been perpetrated. Previous communal riots paled in comparison to the unprecedented brutality that India's partition had thrown up. Over 15 million people had been left homeless, with Muslims fleeing India, Pakistan, and Hindus and Sikhs abandoning Pakistan for India. The eventual death toll of India's partition would exceed 1 million souls. Constable Sukhbir Singh entered the death train in Amritsar, calling out to his colleagues for help. He began the process of looking for survivors, although his instincts told him that no one had been left alive. Luckily, Sukhbir Singh's instincts were often wrong. Within a few minutes, he struck gold. What was that sound? Was it someone sobbing? Sukhbir began shoving aside corpses like a man possessed. If there was even one survivor left in the train, Sukhbir would find him. A few minutes later, he pulled out a small frightened boy from underneath a bench seat. The boy's kurta was stained with blood from a corpse that had fallen on him. His cheeks were stained with tears and soot. The boy trembled as Sukhbir reached for him. "Hush, little one, I'm not going to hurt you," whispered Sukhbir as he lifted the whimpering boy into his arms. He hugged him gently, attempting to drive away the memory of the demons that the boy had witnessed and been possessed by. Unfortunately, he knew that demons would plague him for the rest of his life. Drenched in sweat and blood, Sukhbir Singh was about to exit the train with the child when he heard a groan. Were his ears deceiving him? Was it yet another human voice? And then it came again. Sukhbir called out to his colleagues, Chand Prakash. "Chand, I need you to take this boy to the retiring room. Find him something to eat and drink. I have to find the other boys." The streets of Patliputra lay quiet. Even the late night taverns had packed off their last customers. The 64 gates built into the massive walls that surrounded the city had been shuttered for the night. 570 sentries stationed in individual towers along the perimeter maintained vigil for intruders from across the surrounding moat. In the center of the town stood the magnificent royal palace, nestled in a bed of splendid gardens and lakes. The massive doors to the palace lay locked, having been secured by royal guards, but a secret entrance remained open. It was used only once every full moon night by 9 specially chosen men. Inside the palace, the emperor was still at work. He barely ever slept. It meant that everyone else around him also remained sleep deprived. He sat at the head of meeting chamber. Floor mounted flaming torches threw dancing shadows that bounced off the walls as the monarch deliberated with the 9 men. Ashoka was not a handsome man. In fact, most people found him rather unattractive. In the past, though he had always exuded a spirit of unbounded energy which seemed to have entirely vanished these days, Kalinga had changed him. Kalinga had been the proverbial thorn in Ashoka's side, and he had finally succeeded in plucking the Federal Republic out several years ago. Ashoka's great triumph at Kalinga had eluded even his father and grandfather. The victory should have been cause for grand celebration. So why had it felt so hollow? Ashoka had conquered Kalinga by sending a 1 lakh of his own warriors to their deaths. Twice that number of Kalingans had died. The river Daya that bordered the battlefield had turned red for several months after the gruesome war. And then there had been a transformation in the emperor. Ashoka the Wicked had morphed into Ashoka the Righteous. The emperor looked at the 9 men in the room. Each one of them was seated on a throne that was identical to that of Ashoka. No single man was greater than the others inside this chamber. Ashoka was lost in thought. Could he trust them to do what was required? Would they honor their word for him? Realizing that he had no alternative, Ashoka took a deep breath and spoke. I have called you here because I'm very worried, he began. The oldest among them, the preserver of the secret, knew better than to show any reaction. He awaited his instructions while holding his bulky folder. The folder was stitched from fabric and had jellyfish-like emblem embroidered on the cover. Over the years, we have almost perfected our research, continued Ashoka. The voluminous folder before you contains a body of inquiry that is path-breaking. Emperors would willingly give up their kingdoms to acquire such incredibly empowering knowledge. Your research has helped making the modern empire prosperous. It has enabled us to win wars, subdue our enemies, and provide a better life to our people. He paused. His mind was struggling to find appropriate words for the occasion. But look at what I did with your work. I annihilated 1/3 of a million people in my lust for power. I am wrecked by shame, guilt, and remorse. And you know what? There is nothing inside your folder that has a solution for my condition. Ashoka dropped his gaze to the floor. Your Highness, the Kalinga War was a decade ago. In subsequent years, you have done so much to play the role of father to your people, said the preserver of the secret. He was oldest among them. His name was Kalpasika. Ashoka looked up as you have established free hospitals, you have supported universities and monasteries, you have built rest houses, you have planted thousands of trees, you have kept taxes low, you have ensured that government officials deal with citizens in a caring manner. No emperor has ever done so much for his people in such a short span of time, said Kalpasika, without a hint of flattery in his voice. Everything that Kalpasika has said was absolutely true. Ashoka smiled a weary smile. Thank you for trying to cheer me up, Kalpasika, he said. Try as I may to bribe my way out of karmic disease, damnation. I shall not succeed. Eventually, I too shall have to pay the price for my sins. He paused yet again. As you know, knowledge is power, he said. Power can be used for good. It can also be used for evil. Under no circumstances can we afford to let our knowledge fall into the wrong hands. What are you suggesting, Devanampriya? Asked Kalpsika, using Ashoka's preferred title, Beloved of the Gods. We need to ensure that your scholarship is preserved for generations to come without ever allowing it to be wrongly used, replied the emperor. The thoughts running through the minds of the 9 men were almost identical. How do we bury such powerful knowledge? Almost as though he was reading their minds, Ashoka asked, so, how does one bury such powerful knowledge? I suggest that our wisdom should be vested in a single person. Who could that person be? Ashoka looked at each of the 9 men before he spoke. Kalpsika, would you be willing to take up this onerous responsibility? After all, you are the preserver of the secret, as also the oldest in the group. You would need to guard this knowledge with your life. You must not let the outside world know anything about what you possess. But I am mortal, said Kalpsika. How shall I preserve the information for posterity? How will we improve upon research? What will happen when I die? When death is near, you shall choose an appropriate successor to preserve the material, replied Ashoka. Your successor does not have to be your blood relative, although you may choose to appoint one. Merit, honesty, loyalty, and strength should be the key criteria in choosing your successor. Your knowledge shall be passed down to your successor accompanied by an oath of complete secrecy. Kalpsika nodded. As you can see, Kalpsika, your role is particularly critical. Greed is a terrible motivator for men. You shall have to take extraordinary precautions. It is vital that the information in your safe custody should only be used to benefit mankind, not to further the aims of individuals. We have jointly perfected our research up to the 17th step. We must reach the 18th. Devanampriya, as suggested by you a year ago, I have entirely memorized the notes like a student in Gurukul. Every successor of mine shall do the same. Ashoka nodded. Good. Can you recite all the 18 steps? Kalpsika began reciting. Swedana, Mardana, Murchana, Uttapana, Patana, Rodhana, Niyamana, Sandipana. Ashoka closed his eyes, almost meditating the words. Gagana Gras, Karana, Garbh Badruti, Bhayadruti, Jarana, Ranjana, Sarana, Kramana, Vedana, Bhaksana. Ashoka opened his eyes. Please recite the mantra, requested the emperor. Kalpasika folded his hands in mental supplication to Shiva and began chanting in Sanskrit. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Vandana Mrityur Mukshi Mamarta. The ancient passage from the Rig Veda was an exceptionally powerful mantra. Kalpsika paused. Conclusion, instructed Ashoka. Kalpsika began in Prakrit, the preferred language of Mauryan court. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. Food that is sweet can be bitter. Eyes meant to see can be closed. Seeing eyes are children too, but the discerning eye is the mother. Potions and chants, it is true, are complemented by the other. Ashoka then spoke to Kalpsika and the 8 remaining men for the final time that night. Until today, I used to refer to you as my 9 special men. Henceforth, you shall be called the 9 unknowns. This is our last and final meeting. It is now time for you to disband and return to the far-flung places whence I had requested you to come. I am thankful for your time and efforts. May God be with you. So guys, this was the first part of the Sialkot saga. I know this is very short, but if we receive support and your love in this audio come video, so I'm promised that the next audio come video will be of 1 hour. So thank you and subscribe to the channel for updates.